There's Orion.
Dorian.
It's taken a minute.
It says we are now streaming on YouTube.
Nope, you have to wait. So you'll see the window on YouTube, and then that means you're actually streaming. And then I have to press record on Zoom. So
It says live on YouTube now.
it's not though, Charlie.
I agree, Charlie. I was thinking the same thing.
I have to wait till I see the window, and then I know it's here. Okay, hang on. So that it's loading, and then okay.
There we go. It says recording.
Yep.
Millions of Americans right now tuning in to see live our meeting on YouTube. All right. Could you share screen for the Marin docs? Exactly. Oh, you know what? I don't know. Don't do it yet. Don't do it yet.
All right.
I will just yeah. I will just pull up my meeting. All right. Call to order, guys. Pledge to the flag that hopefully I always get in the right direction.
It's good.
I pledge allegiance to the
Allegiance
flag
To
of
the
the United
flag,
States of America
United States of America,
and
to
to
the
the republic
republic
for which it
which
stands,
stands
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
Under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty and
liberty
justice
and
for all.
justice for all.
Okay, roll call, please. Brianna.
Chair Lindstrom,
Here.
Mr. Sarofsky,
Here.
Mr. Williams,
Here,
Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones, oh, you're muted, Rick.
Here.
Okay. Mr. Buckbinder's not here. Mr. Pinsky
Here.
and Ms. Maloney is not here. Okay.
All right, so first we have a meeting, a mini meeting, a workshop meeting of the planning board, and then we will close that, and then we will work on our strategy together. The first, I'm trying to find it here. Our first item is to approve the waiver letter that was sent in for Mr. Rich for all of the parking that we had to waive. Did everybody get a chance to read this and is okay with it?
Yep, I'm fine with it.
it seems like the best final solution to a bad spot.
Yeah, Heather and I went over to make sure we hit all of the possible parking waiver things that might be waived. And she has say that 10 times fast. She has them all covered within her document. All right, then I will make a motion to waive all of the requested parking criteria.
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Let's do a roll call so it's just easier to hear everybody. Brianna?
Okay. Chair Lindstrom,
Yes.
Mr. Sarofsky,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes,
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Pinsky.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So that takes care of that.
Maureen, a small comment. I guess it's
Yes.
actually more just so Heather knows the narrative, the updated narrative that was submitted, those square footage and parking numbers didn't match the waiver.
Oh.
Do they still not match? We tried to get them all together.
I just thought you'd probably like to know
I
because the
would,
waiver
yes.
looked fantastic. So I just thought that anyway.
Wow, Sam, you compare them.
So,
Wow.
I read the one, then I was reading the other and I was like, wait a second.
I know.
and you needed to bring that up before we approved it.
No, it doesn't.
no, it's okay for the parking.
It's a narrative.
Something, it's separate. The parking is one issue. The other one is there's a checklist that Heather and I went over of items to make sure that the narrative matches the site plan. And that was one of them, Sam, to make sure that the latest final site plan match, you have to update the narrative for a final narrative. So everything is saying the same thing.
Okay, I will call
So the work.
once again.
So what I didn't compare them. What's the difference between those two narratives? 19 and 25 days.
I think I didn't compare the two narratives. I just compared the new narrative to the new parking waiver.
I
Okay,
see. I
They both requested,
saw that you were using first narrative.
yeah, they both requested a reduction of 5, but they started and ended with different numbers. Both of them.
oh.
So.
Check your math is what you're saying?
Well, the math was right. It's just the narrative said you ended up with 11 spots and started with a need of 16. Where
Oh, it was 16 in the
It was-
beginning, right?
Exactly. So it's a cut and paste difficulty from the very, very first narrative to where we've gotten it now.
not a substantive, it's just a complete.
Yeah. We need to get it.
Parking
So they
area.
started at 6, say started at 16 and we wound up with 9 as, right?
No, we eventually, at one point we needed 16 and then we reduced the square footage.
Right.
Okay, you're right, you're right. Okay, got it.
Exactly. By reducing the square footage, you reduce the need, but then also we gave a waiver to be even less than what was technically required because that would still be too
Right.
many. Many if thens. All right, so we're set then, Heather, to go through the rest of this at the meeting on the 8th.
8th. Yay.
Yay. I have one question for you, Mary Lou, that I sent quickly on this. This technically could be a type 2 under seeker. If you read, I don't know if you saw my email.
I did not. When did you send me an email?
I sent you an email earlier today. It was in one of the threads though, when you were talking about,
Oh, okay. When we're talking about the
but I
other,
will quickly,
I pull it up. Let me find
Uh,
it.
so type 2 in 617-5C, where these actions are not subject to review under this part. Reuse of a residential or commercial structure or a structure containing mixed residential and commercial uses where the residential or commercial use is a permitted use under the applicable zoning law or ordinance, including permitted by special use permit, and the action does not meet or exceed any of the thresholds in section 617.4. That's basically for type 1. So it doesn't meet the thresholds for historic because you're really not touching or changing anything. But should we type this as an unlisted, uncoordinated, because we would like the commentary from the other, like the Department of Public Works, and obviously can go to the Ulster County Planning Board just for comment.
Well, you can ask for those things separately. You can't use seeker to get comments if it otherwise does not require that. So it does fall under type 2. So I would
What I
say that
thought.
it's type 2, and then you're always welcome to send it to any other agency for comments.
Perfect. And that's what we'll do on that. Heather, you got that? Okay. All right. Thank you. And we will move on. Nadine, I saw you were there, correct?
I'm here.
And Mr. Williams is there. So we have, I had everybody review, for the sake of expedience, the findings ahead of time. And the only comments that we had, that any changes from anybody, was one, Zoran caught a date to change on the documents, which I changed that. And Mary Lou, I had the famous garage. That was incorrect that it would be technically in the right of way. It is just out of the right of way. So I will read you the only change. Otherwise, everybody was okay with everything. I have to get it. So in number 11, the board reviewed the proposed lot has safe and legal access. The bullet point, the board concluded that as a flag lot, the entirety of the right of way must be 50 feet wide. This is not shown on the preliminary site plan and shall be a condition of approval for the final plan. A plat note stating the maximum number of lots that can be created with a flag lot, 3, shall be a condition of approval. The board noted that the extension of the flag lot right-of-way to 50 feet for the entirety of the right-of-way, as required by code, puts the existing garage within approximately 5.5 feet of the periphery of the right-of-way. Upon consultation with the town attorney, this was determined to be legally acceptable and resolvable with an easement and shared driveway agreement between the parcel owners. So other than that, you've seen all of that. So if everybody's okay with that change, could I get a motion? Yep.
Maren, because it's a public meeting and if we're not reading the whole thing out, if you could just share that, if you can get sharing privileges and share the document in case there is anybody on YouTube who
Yep.
is looking, because we want to be transparent, of course.
Yep. Can you share me?
Except for your background.
Don't worry, my background my background is de-backgrounded. You get to see lots and lots of little icons. All right, if I go to vote, let's do this. Let's make this way bigger.
Yeah, and if you can scroll up to the top so they can see, of the findings.
Yep.
Zoom on yours.
Thank you.
So here are the findings. Instead of reading through, I'll go very quickly, slowly. These have been given to Ms. Carney and also Mr. Ringler. Whoa, you alive?
There you go.
Here is the part that was
That's
Okay.
the spot.
that I just read.
Thank you. That way people can go back on YouTube and
Oh, and
stop
go,
it.
and go through. Perfect. So could I have a motion to approve the findings?
I'll make a motion to approve the findings.
A second, please.
I'll second.
Second.
Do a roll call.
Chair Lindstrom,
Yes.
Mr. Sarofsky,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yep.
Mr. Pinsky,
Yeah,
minus 1, 2, 3. No, that's it. I thought I
Oh.
missed one.
All right, so we will read through the conditions first, or finally, and then the Williams and Nadine still have some work ahead of them, but we will be done with our part. The Town of Rochester Planning Board grants minor subdivision conditional final approval to permitting the subdivision of land situated at 5330 Old Kings Highway, Accord, New York. The subdivision plat dated September 23rd is approved. The following conditions: all fees must be paid. Final plat for signature with these notes. The planning board approves the use of a shared driveway as shown on this plat to serve as no more than 2 single-family dwellings via access from a shared driveway through the establishment of a right-of-way. No more than 1 flag lot shall be created from the existing parcel. Should any application be made for additional dwelling units in excess of the 2 single-family dwellings, the shared driveway approval shall be revoked, and you get to go to a new one. The shared driveway shall be utilized by no more than a total of 3 single-family dwellings or lots, including the lot as access over. B, shared driveway, the proposed ingress, egress easements shown shall be used in common by the owners of lot 1 and 2. All such easements shall be in effect and binding on the owners of said lots, their heirs, successors, and assignees, and all future owners of said lots, heirs, successors, and assignees upon filing of the subdivision plat in the office of Ulster County Clerk. Fire code, as per New York State Fire Code, a driveway over 500 feet must be accessible and able to hold a 75,000-pound, 30-foot long vehicle as determined by a licensed engineer, with facilities for turning around to be available with 100 feet of any structure. A driveway over 500 feet must have a minimum total width of 20 feet. That's 16 plus 2 and 2 for the sides. And a minimum vertical clearance of 15 feet. The driveway must be free of all obstructions such as trees, brush, posts, gates, etc. The subdivision shall adhere to TOR subdivision law 125, 21, and 22 general site requirements and subdivision design. So those are plat notes that Nadine will add on. The subdivision shall not be valid until a certificate of occupancy is issued for the garage conversion to a residence, which is building permit 397 of 2020. All flag lot rights of way must be 50 feet in width. The final plat shall show a 50-foot right of way. No more than one such flag lot shall be created from the existing parcel for a cumulative total of 3 lots, including the original. This shall be incorporated in deed covenants. All flag lot rights of way shall be titled in fee simple ownership to the flag lot property owner. The shared driveway shall, A, be constructed and indicated on the final plat as per town code. Once again, the minimum right of way of 50 feet, minimum pavement, which may consist of any all-weather surface and have the drainage plan satisfactory to the town highway superintendent. A width of 16 feet, minimum shoulder width of 2 on each side. Be constructed and maintained to comply with New York State Fire Code and be of sufficient width, grade, and location to accommodate access by emergency vehicles, services to the lands which are subject to the subdivision applications. It's basically restating what the plat notes are. Shall construct and indicate on the final plat 20 by 20 turnouts every 500 feet as per New York State Fire Code. And those are indicated already. This is on, so you will, when you look at the final site plan, the preliminary site plan already has that. And shall comply with all provisions of 277 of New York State town law and shall be maintained in a good and passable condition under all weather conditions to provide access to all emergency vehicles. An outstanding for these guys is an evidence of satisfactory shared agreements for ownership and maintenance of the shared driveway shall be provided in the form of deed covenants, plat details, and a road maintenance agreement prior to approval of the final plat. Road maintenance agreement shall be presented and approved by the attorney for the town. Any cost or fees associated with such review shall be the responsibility of the applicant. And as prescribed under subsection 140-10D3, the town board must receive and approve a written release after being received by the planning board, exempting the town from all responsibility for the maintenance and construction obligations of the shared driveway. Any and all development shall comply with 125-21 and 22, and all local, county, state, or federal permits shall be secured by the current and future use of these lands.
Maren,
Yes.
just one comment on the plat notes. I don't remember if in the findings we said something to the effect that there's a small core habitat corridor here, and we urge the landowner to assist in the preservation of that. I don't remember if we have that, asked that to be noted on plat notes.
We do usually, if they're going to be close to it or subdividing a lot of it. This is somewhat like the Madalena one, where it's so far in back and any development they're proposing is so far away from it that is covered within that you should not go into that. 125-21 and 125-22 does cover that. I didn't call out the specific one that has the subsection that has
Mention of the,
mention of it because it was so far away and
Okay.
it was so small.
yeah, it was very small. I don't know if distance really makes a difference, but it was very small.
I can pull up right now and find it and and I can add this and subdivision drawing specifically 125-22-8. And that, so that can add that onto the notes?
Yeah.
Because that's the one calling out leaving habitat.
Right.
Do you want me to add that?
Yeah, you had 21 and 22. Let's add that additional one, 22.
This is
Part
22,
eight.
it's just specifically calling out,
It doesn't hurt. And you're right,
Yep.
it's so far away, but
I agree.
rather than making exceptions, let's just put it there and
Yep.
for a good practice.
And when you're done with that, I have one comment also.
Yep.
Maren, you're so agile with this stuff. My God.
Okay, Mary Lou.
On the road maintenance agreement, can
Yes,
you just put in that the road maintenance agreement shall be filed in the office of the Ulster County Clerk simultaneously with the subdivision plat? I think that was around number 7A. So shall be presented and approved by the attorney for the town and shall be,
simultaneously.
shall be,
Simultaneously might be a little hard.
Yeah. no, the road maintenance agreement shall be filed in the Ulster County Clerk's office simultaneously with the subdivision map.
There. That's good?
Yep, thank you.
Perfect. Any other comments from anybody else on the board?
No,
All right, then. This is boilerplate, the effect of the approval, we'll have it there so the public can see. We have read this. Let me just check here. Satisfactory completion of the conditions of approval. No, it would be 7, 3. So I need 1, 2, 3, 4. Should I just say all of them? 6 and 7? All right. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the revisions.
And approve?
Exactly, exactly, to approve as amended,
As
the
amended.
conditional final decision and approval for the Williams's subdivision. Do I have a second?
I will second, Zoya.
Roll call, please, Brianna?
Chair Lindstrom,
Yes.
Mr. Sarofsky,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yep.
and Mr. Pinsky.
Yes,
Perfect. And Nadine, you did have a chance to look at this beforehand. That all looks good to you?
Yes, yep, very standard and, yep, we agree on all those. And I would just ask if Brianna can just send me the final revised one and we'll, as discussed earlier, we'd like to get all the changes on the plans to you as soon as possible while it's fresh in your mind. And the owner will be working with an attorney for the road maintenance agreement. So that'll probably be the last piece of the puzzle.
Exactly. All right, perfect. Thank you, guys.
Thank
And
you.
Have a good night.
You too.
Good night. Thanks
Night.
for your time.
So now do I make an official motion to close? How do I do this, Mary Lou? An official motion to close the first part of the meeting?
No, I believe it was advertised as a joint meeting, right?
Meeting? Okay, so,
So you might want to take a roll call for the ZBA.
she did at the beginning.
Did you
No,
do the ZBA
not for
too?
the not for the ZBA because I didn't
All right,
know.
sorry,
if you
I missed
should,
that.
so that's okay. So
Mhm.
I'll do that now.
Didn't we advertise it 2 separate meetings? Because we originally advertised the workshop meeting at the beginning of the year, and then this was an additional meeting.
It was it was renoticed as a joint meeting.
Great.
So Mary Lou, should I do the ZBA now?
Yes, please.
Okay. Mr. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Behringer,
Present.
and Chair Sars.
So as I mentioned a little while ago to everybody, we decided to try to coordinate a little better what's going on with the ZBA and what's going on with the planning board. So we all know what everybody else is doing. And we both put together some presentations of what we worked on in the past year. And then we'll have some strategy stuff of how we can work better together and what each of us do. So if you could share Bruce's screen, I'll leave it to you, Bruce, and let you go through. He
Okay.
showed us up, guys. He's got one heck of a PowerPoint.
Oh, my goodness. You have to allow me to share, Brianna.
So I will stop share. Does that, and
No. The host disabled participant screen sharing.
Should be good now, Bruce.
So can everybody see this? Oh,
Not yet.
not
Ready?
yet. Well, now we can't hear Bruce either.
He's not saying anything.
If it doesn't work, I can,
Why don't you throw up that PowerPoint then, and I can just speak to it? That would work.
exactly. Hold on one second.
Oh, hang on. I think I got it.
There we
How's
go.
that? There we go.
There we go.
Yay. Okay. Well, you have to hit the share button. I've learned that. Now I'm a writer than I was before. So I'd just like the zoning board members just to introduce themselves briefly. If they could, Bill, why don't you introduce yourself first? There's Bill on mute.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, Bill Behringer, lived here in the town for all my life, 62 years. Family originally from just the other side of the town of Rochester, in the town of Olive over there in Sampsonville. Worked a lot of places here in the town, and I worked for the New Paltz School District a good many years also.
Charlie?
Yeah, Charlie Fisher, lived in the town 39 years, and I own a small engine repair shop here in Cohasset.
Thanks, Charlie. And I'm Bruce Sars. I haven't lived in town as long as these gentlemen have. I've only been in town about 8 years or so now. I'm still working. I work for an air cargo company that's based in Portchester, New York. So the COVID-19 has provided me with the opportunity not to commute anymore. So I'm loving that, but that's about the only positive from that. Currently, I started with the zoning board back in September, along with Bill, back in September of 2017. So we've been on the board for quite a while, although Charlie precedes us by a number of years, I think, as well.
Yeah,
So
I've been
currently we have-
here
Yep,
10
I'm sorry.
years, if I'm not mistaken.
10 years, okay. Yeah. So currently we have 3 vacancies, 2 full members and 1 alternate on the board that we're looking to fill. And I understand there's some good candidates that'll be coming our way. So hopefully the town board will fill us up. So in 2020, we did make a few changes to the way we do things. The first thing was a motion template. And although the motion template isn't something that's approved by the board, it's something that I've thrown together more, a little bit of a selfish reason, that the motion template, the motions that we presented in the past were very much drafted almost like a legal document, a lot of whereas clauses and things like that. And it took a bit to work through all the language to get what's really happening with the motion and what's happening with the application. So we've made it a bit more like your motions, where they're very much plain English, and it's easy to discern what the statements are. And in making it easier as well, I think it encourages more than just one member to submit motions, where anyone can take this as a guideline, because we have the 5 questions we answer, certainly, that you're familiar with. So in throwing them right up there, right up front, it's much easier for newer members, certainly, to be able to make motions, and for existing members to do it. So a little easier to follow for us, and certainly much easier for the public to follow as well, because you see what's written in there. The other thing we changed was a ZBA process guide for applicants, and this is more of a flow diagram. So when an applicant submits a variance application after being denied, they can understand what the various steps are in the process. So at any point, they can see a little bit better what's going on in the background. Because we noticed quite often we get questions, what's the next step? Where do we stand? What are we doing now? So I got that a lot, because when we had meetings at the community center, my chair was next to the applicant. So they would be constantly chirping in my ear about that. So this was one way to address that and get the chirping out of my ears. The other thing was this year-end report. I understand that they had been done in the past. So we started doing them now as a way to get some trending and analysis around the variances that come to us. And, certainly having a fact-based decisions about those variances help when we do things like reconsideration on the comprehensive plan, maybe present to the town board things where they may want to change ordinances around things based on, just demand from the way things are going. They can't envision everything, 10 and 15 years down. So, periodic review is a good thing. And this is a way to sort of guide that review as well. So, the next thing we're working on is, I'm calling them Spark Notes for the new board members. This was something Bill and I had both run into when we started. How does the meeting process? Why is only one guy presenting a motion? How come there are motions before we discuss everything? This is more to give them a feel for what goes on. I can just give you a brief, if we just look at the addendum quickly, what goes into that. It's really, telling them what the meeting times and dates are, what does a quorum consist of, right? And what's the appropriate code. There is a code actually that tells you how we seat alternates to hear different cases. So lets them understand that. Hearing protocol, what we do in initial meetings, what we do in public meetings, how we arrive at decisions, what's the voting process, reminds people of the Open Meeting Act. We don't want members going out to dinner and discussing certain cases, things like that. Ex parte communications, we're always getting hit with folks asking us our opinions on things when we're walking out of a meeting. And then how to engage the town attorney when it's appropriate to contact Mary Lou and when it's not appropriate to do it. A lot of that is just simply budget consideration for the town. So that's still a work in progress. Hopefully we'll have it before the new members start and we'll be in good shape there. So I can't find my maps in that other. So hang on just a second. I'm going to jump to This, okay. Are you guys able to see the year in review report at all?
Yep,
No?
yep,
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
that's good. Yep, it's good.
Yep. So I don't think this is the one I sent you, Maren. Maybe you can call that one up. So I think I had made some changes to it. Let's see. Hang on. Let's see. Okay. So hopefully you're seeing this now, yeah?
Yep,
Yep, okay. So zoning board heard 10 applications last year. 8 were dimensional variances, area variances. 1 was a use variance, and 1 was an administration appeal on on one of Jerry's decisions. We granted 1 area variance. The use variance was still pending. That was the Williams variance that they just withdrew this past week or so. 3 were denied, 2 were withdrawn, one of which was Solzberg's application, which you guys heard as well on
Right.
Queens Highway. And then 2 are pending. The use variance is gone, but there's still 2 outstanding pending. Just in terms of category, lot line adjustments, you guys are big on those. We get some of those. Accessory structures, we denied all 3 that came through there. The home occupation was the music studio, and we had denied that. And the accessory use is pending. That was the use structure that Williams had withdrawn. So, and the granting of the home occupation, that was the appeal, the Catawba Lane appeal. So, when we look at it in terms of conforming parcels and non-conforming parcels, again, it was about 50-50 split between the 2. And the ones that were granted were for non-conforming applications. That was a lot line adjustment, 2 lots. 1 was non-conforming, 1 was conforming. And there was an easement running in between for the solar array. So we had shifted that lot line for the paddocks, right? So not a real trend there, but we're starting. We also looked where the variances are coming from. There's only 8 dots on the map, rather, although we heard 10 cases, because 2 of the cases were the same spot. The Williams was both the use and an variance in the same spot. Catawba Lane was both the use and the area and the appeal in the same spot. So again, just to get a feel for where these are coming up. And then that's about it, just as the motion template. I don't know if I'm able to make it a little larger. You can see, where we're just simply asking the 5 questions with tick boxes, yes or no, and coming down. Very much conforms to the standard that you guys have set out, what the documents that you're considering for review, those kind of things. All right. Let's go to the next page, the process guide. Again, it starts with the applicant applying for a permit, and either the code enforcement will deny it or you guys will refer them to us, right? We encourage them to have a pre-meeting with us so we can review anything that may be problematic in their application, and of course they can revise it. And it just works through the various steps, secret determination, positive deck, negative deck, and items like that. And then again, we spoke about the topics that we're covering in the public hearing. So you guys have, I know Maren forwarded a copy of the year report. I don't know if you have any questions about that, or we can just move along. If there's anything you'd like, let us know. I will stop sharing now.
Bruce, I have a question on your template. Yours is a little easier than ours because you can, say check, check,
Yeah.
check. Do you have any place in there in case something doesn't fit exactly, or do they all end up fitting the template? Does that make sense?
Yeah, there is a spot for, conditions, if we want to place conditions on that. We haven't done that as yet, but otherwise, we consider the 5 questions. That's really what
Right.
our purview is, right?
Can I
On
switch?
Maureen, on the
Yeah.
ZBA, it is set forth for different types of variances, exactly what the tests are. So that's why we can do the check boxes and put the finding as to why we check yes
Right.
or no. So it's much more, I
Codified
don't
and,
know. if-
Yeah,
and
Yeah,
sort of
it's,
clear.
yeah, you
Right.
have a lot more to consider and weigh, where here, the ZBA is lucky in that it's like, not that they're always easy to decide which way to check that box, but it's, 5 different items for the area variance and 4 for a use variance.
Got it. Anybody else, the planning board have any questions?
No, it looked pretty good to me.
Thanks, Bruce. So hopefully we'll do this sort of every 6 months. So we can get a better update. And Bruce, I also sent a copy of ours to the town board. Even though we have the liaison, sometimes it's easy to just see it all together. So I don't know if you sent, have it on file, like everything we did all together. So I don't know, maybe if you wanted to do that also, you could send yours, I don't know if you did, to everybody in the town board.
yeah, I had sent the review to Erin to present, so.
Okay, perfect.
Hey, Maureen,
I think
sorry.
What?
Rick has something, Maureen.
Yep. Rick?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes?
Not to take a lot of time, but Mary Lou, would you mind just brief overview of how does something get to the ZBA? Sometimes, when we're in a meeting, you hear discussions about, well, instead of coming to us, it should have gone to the ZBA, or you
Well,
just,
okay, yeah, it can get to the ZBA in 2 different ways. One, when it goes to the building department can say, oh, wait, this doesn't meet code, you have to get a variance from the ZBA. Or it can be sent to the ZBA by the planning board. Because sometimes you're gonna find something out in your planning review that we may not have known at the building department level. So there's 2 ways things can get to the ZBA. Either from planning board referral or from building department
building.
referral.
okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Do you find in your work and your review that sometimes there should be some improvement in the code codification, make a process go smoothly and so on? Do you have you suggested anything to the town board or planning to suggest? I'm not asking for specific, but in general.
General, yes, we do. We've done it a couple of different ways. We've either sent suggestions directly to the town supervisor, or we've worked through our liaison to the town board as well. I know occasionally I have discussions with Maren about various topics, and I know I've suggested things to her as well. I can give you a perfect example of one that we found as a group in our work at a meeting, and that's there's a code that says in order to have horses on your property, you need to have 3+ acres of land in order to have a horse, right? So people who have under that sometimes come in for a variance in order to have the horses. But when you have 3+ acres, there's no code that says what's the maximum number of animals you could keep on your land. So if you have 3 acres, in theory, you could put 10,000 horses on that. And certainly nobody would do that. But, does that need to be more structured and better defined? I think bringing it to the attention of the board that there may be a deficiency in that code, it's still up to them in order to make the code. We can only enforce it. We don't make the rule, right? But that's the kind of thing that we found as a group in one of our meetings that rose to that level of concern, right? So the short answer is yes, Zoran, it does.
Thank you.
Anything else, guys? All right, then maybe, thank you very much, Bruce. I think this was super good that we, instead of everybody in their little silos doing their silo stuff, to sort of bring it all together into one big farm so we all know what's going on either side of it. Next on, we do have a little bit more on our plate. Can you share, as Mary Lou said, we can be all over the place. Can you reshare me, and I'll very quickly go through our document, and then Brianna, then you're going to get to be the speaker. And then Sam has done a lot of work how we can better organize our meetings to sort of have a codified approach, somewhat like the flow chart. And some of it's still work in progress. Some I think is perfect, ready to go ideas. So if I can,
Maya, can you just like click on the full screen on that?
is that good?
That's better.
That's it's really big when I'm looking at it, but there you got the full screen.
Yeah, well, I'm working off the iPad, so sorry.
Well, it's some of us have big screens and some work off of their phones, and it's a choice of style. So we have 7 members. I do not have a nice PowerPoint to define this like Bruce did. Next time I'm going to up my game. There are 7 members and an alternate. Our meetings are the second Monday of every month at 7 p.m. And we also have an optional workshop meeting, which is the last Monday of every month, which we're using right now. And we keep that open, and we tend to, it's easier procedurally to have it always open and cancel it all the time. So it's always there available and set, and just use it when we need it. So last year we had 4 workshops and 12 meetings. We can run through quickly we'll go from the back forward. Sam, do you want to give a quick intro of your Samness?
Yeah, and you got to control F my spelling.
I know. Look, I did it.
You still have extra K in there.
Yeah, where'd that K come from?
So I'm
Which one? That one?
that one.
The first one.
There we
And
go.
look, it even took the red line away.
It's because I probably used it once before, and this is the correct one that I put into my dictionary.
So
All
I'm,
right, you got it in the next paragraph. You got to fix it
you've
too.
got to do control F.
Yes, the same story.
Oh my! So this is the problem we have, Bruce, with my board, and we're trying to codify how we manage meetings because we get distracted correcting spelling on a document that's internal instead of introducing ourselves.
I have no comment.
So my name's Sam Zarofsky. I've been on the planning board now for, I don't know, 4 years, maybe something like that. My wife, Erin, and I run a farm, an organic vegetable farm here in town. We grow vegetables year round, and I've lived in town, I don't know, since what, for, yeah, about 8 years, about the same as Bruce. So that's who I am.
Zorian.
Okay, my name is Zorian. I've been living in town since 2014. I retired here. I used to be mechanical engineer. And I'm a member of the board for last 3 years. First year was an alternate. And the last 2 years, I'm full member of the board.
And Anne Marie is not here, so she gets to be skipped. Rick, can you tell your life history, Rick?
Hi, do I have a half hour or what? Oh, no.
No. You got 15 seconds.
Rick Jones, I've been here in the town, I guess, for 5 years, 4.5 years on the planning board. grew up in New York City, raised the kids in Orange County, and then moved up here, as I said, about 5 years ago. 41 years in banking, where I did everything except for investment banking. There can only be one investment banker on the board, and that's Maren. So, and that's enough, right, Maren? And just loving the planning board, although I didn't love doing Wayward Ranches. But aside from that, it's great.
Brian he rescinded his membership as of this year. So this is a open position that we have on the board. And so on to you, Patrick.
Okay, I've been here about 10 years. My wife and I run a horse farm. Her family's only been here for about 300 or 350 years. Pretty much carried over. I was in Rhinebeck for 30 years on a couple of boards over there, and came over to this side of the river and just trying to keep it all clean.
Literally and proverbially for you.
Yeah.
And I'm Maren Lindstrom. I have been on the planning board for 7 years and chair for 3 years. Been in town for, wow, my life goes by fast, for 20 years, although not full-time. The full-time's been probably for the last 7 years. I've worked all over America, but my career was in investment management and in convertible bonds. So I managed a lot of pension money and large endowment foundation, the percentage of their assets that would go into convertible bonds. It's great because it's a real conversation stopper. Nobody knows what they are and nobody cares about them. So you can move on to everybody else's fun lots quickly. Perfect. Thank you, guys. Brianna keeps us all together. She managed our daily operations. CPL is Clark Patterson Lee, that now changed himself to CPL, is the planning consultant. And we all know Mary Lou, and Mike Baden, our supervisor, is our liaison. I said we had 12 meetings already. We reviewed 45 applications, guys, over 2020. We were busy. We also did some commentary that was asked by the board on proposed local law 5, which is short-term transient rentals, and also amending the town plan, the comprehensive plan, to add the natural heritage, open space. And this is the third time we have said we would like to do this. So hopefully the third time is the charm. And we also submitted, but as a group of citizens, because it could not be a planning board issue, a letter and a draft code language for perhaps adding in a littering law. So we'll see if the town also gets around to that. Here's how it breaks up. Lot line improvements were, we had 11 of those, 10 approved, 1 was withdrawn, 14 minor subdivisions, 2 major subdivisions, 8 site plan approvals, 8 special use permits, and 2 sign approvals. The vast majority of what we do ends up being approved with conditions, but that does not leave us open and does not close the door to just approve nice and clean and also to deny a application. And as you can see by the pending, withdrawn, I won't go through all, and in process, we are in a subdivision frenzy right now in town. And that, if there's a sort of a timeline or a progression or a trend, as Bruce mentioned, that is really the trend that we are seeing. And I would also just quickly highlight on the special use permit, we had a couple interesting ones. One is we will have an ice cream store coming to us, which I think is pretty cool. So on a site plan approval, we had a bed and breakfast, which was really keeping the structure the same it is and adding in a bed and breakfast. But where are we? So we had Farmers in Accord was really a simple conversion of a structure. Wayward Ranch. I think everybody and their mother knows about that. It was a long, long, hard haul, but they are potentially, maybe, going to have a kennel along with their farm animal sanctuary. Sleeping Giant Ice Cream is to change the existing flower shop into a ice cream store. And then, as you can see, it's already almost up and ready to go, a drive-through deli where we used to have the Rainbow Diner. Those would be sort of the more interesting as opposed to the subdivisions. And that is that for our sort of update. Any questions or comments before we move on to how we go through our process and how we make our process better? All right, Brianna, we now have a star performance.
Don't do that.
So I wanted to have her talk through a little bit so everybody on the planning board knows what happens and how somebody turns up and they want to do something. There is a process and how much work sort of goes into it before it ends up on our table. And so everybody, and maybe we can see ways that we could make Brianna's life easier. So I'll give it over to you.
I did not do like a PowerPoint, so I'll just talk. And when I get nervous, I play with my hair a lot, and my mom is probably watching this telling me to stop. So I'm letting you guys know now. So obviously everybody knows that everything goes through the code enforcement office first. They make a determination, and then it comes to either one of the boards. So we started since Becky and Jerry's office, the code enforcement office, is so busy, strongly suggested that most applicants try to have their materials to them 3 weeks before any of our scheduled meetings. So we know that our deadline is 2 weeks before our scheduled meetings. So we want them to have their stuff in 3 weeks ahead of time to Becky and Jerry. We did put that on the website, so that is something that people can go on the website now, and they can go to the zoning board and planning board section of the website and see we have the code enforcement cutoff date, the respective boards cutoff date, and then the date of the meeting, so they know. So that's something new, and it seems to be working out a lot better. They are informed once they get through Becky and Jerry's office. They are informed that they are coming to either one of the boards, and Becky usually emails me everything and copies me on the email she sends the applicant. They also are aware before they put their applications in that even if they get all their materials in by the cutoff date, it doesn't necessarily mean they'll be on the agenda. We have had a lot of applicants this year not have everything they need. Some applications are missing signatures. Some might not be able to get their maps done in time. Some applications require a ton of research, of extra research that takes more time. So we do try to tell them, you know, just because you have everything in on time doesn't mean it will necessarily guarantee to be on the agenda. So once I get all the application materials, I stamp everything with a date stamp, and I scan it and I put it on a file on my computer and on Google Drive for you guys to see. I generally don't upload the application until they pay a fee, unless it's a pre-app. So I do discuss that with the applicant. They do have the option to do a pre-app. Most of them don't want to do a pre-app, I have found this year. They just want to be on. And I won't upload anything until they pay the fee, just so that they are aware that they are going full speed ahead. All the applications, the zoning board applications and the planning board applications, have checklists attached to them. A lot of applicants don't read that. So I try to point them when I send an application to them. I tell them there's a checklist that has all the stuff that they need. And I've been trying to do better of pointing that out because I didn't always do that, and it makes their life easier. It makes my life easier, and it seems to be working a lot better now. What else? Kind of just like my daily stuff. I don't know if most people are aware of what I actually do besides upload a lot of stuff. My office is open 9 a.m. until noon and then 1 to 4. Once or twice a week, I do meet with Becky and Jerry to kind of update them on what is going on here. And they update me kind of on what might be coming into us. So sometimes I do have a heads up on things. I have a lot of emails. Most of my work is checking emails. This job is extremely email heavy, not so much phone calls, lots and lots of emails. I do answer the phones, of course. I collect the fees of the applications. Those go in a daily work binder, and then it also goes on a computer program. All my deposits, all my money goes to the town clerk unless they are escrows, and those go to the supervisor's office, and they take care of that. What else? Lots of filing, lots and lots of minutes. I do the legal notices for public hearings. I do the legal notices for the meeting date or location changes. And I also put the yearly meeting schedule on the website and in the paper. I send everything that needs to get posted on the website to Rich Miller. He's the one who does the website. I don't have control. I know sometimes people get upset if things aren't on the website. I do the best I can. I don't have control of that all the time. I send monthly financial reports to the town clerk and the town board members. I send out a public hearing fee notices once public hearings are done. I do mail out the public hearing notices. Those go to anyone who lives within a 500-foot boundary of the application. A public hearing fee actually consists of the cost of mailing and the cost of putting it in the newspaper. If there's more than one applicant that is having a public hearing at the same time, I divide that cost among how many applicants there are. So I schedule meetings with the chairs of the boards if people want pre-apps, and I do have a lot of daily interactions with the public. I get a lot of phone calls about what is going on, and most people are very, very nice. So I haven't had too many interactions with people who are unkind. Sometimes they come off like that at first, and then when I kind of explain things, they seem to get a better understanding. I think most people don't realize all the logistics of the boards and what it entails. So I also do your stipends. So I keep track of all your attendance, all your training credits, and I'm the one who sends over the vouchers to the town to get approved. So you guys, you get your stipends. And I answer a lot of phones, but mostly emails. And that's pretty much it. I do also work 5 hours a week with Becky and Jerry since their office is so crazy right now. So it's very busy here, very, very busy. There is not a lot of downtime whatsoever. So I am keeping busy and I do my best to keep everything organized for you guys. So.
And you even forgot one thing you do. You also, when we have to send letters.
I send lots of letters, yes.
So to SHPO, to the,
Yeah.
she writes the letters and sends all the letters out whenever we're referring things, and some of those have to be done through a website or an electronic filing format. So there are multiple ways that everybody gets their information.
SHPO is probably the toughest one. Ulster County Planning Board is also a little bit arduous because I have to send everything physically to them, and I have to send everything to them in the Dropbox. So Dropbox easy, but some of the applications you print all those out, and it takes a long time. It's a lot of ink.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? But I think that's helpful to know that there's a lot of work before this stuff ends up lollygagging on our desks. And I think it's going to be very helpful having this specific dates on the website for each month of what your cutoffs are for applicants, and that sort of parlays into the next part, which is maybe we could have Sam go through share screen with Sam, or I can put it up, Sam, and you can tell me what to do, but it's easier if you share it. Yeah, to try and codify some of what we do. Because one thing that Brianna just mentioned there, we suggest to everybody to have a pre-app. Some people want it, a lot of people don't. And then they come to the planning board and they realize they really aren't very well prepared. So Rick and I had talked about this, Sam and I had talked about it, is making the first thing like the ZBA does. It would be consistent with their methodology. Every first meeting is a pre-app. Not if it's a lot line, not if it's a natural subdivision, but otherwise they're presenting their idea. We can present the hurdles, etc. And they could even have two pre-apps. They could have a pre-app with me, Jerry, Brianna, whatever, and then a pre-app with the whole board. But that's an idea to keep in the back of your head of making every first appearance a pre-app. That would be free. And then people could get a feeling of, do I go forward with my project this way? Do I need to change my project somewhat, or do I want to just abandon my project? So Sam, I'll hand it over to you because you sort of move through some more of our codifications.
Sure. Brianna, can you enable me to screen share? Okay. Okay, is that working for everyone?
Yep, it's good for me.
Yep.
Okay, great. So what I was just trying to do, since we switched over to Zoom in particular, just sort of the way that we go through individual applications within the meeting seemed like a place where we could both do a better job kind of moving the applications forward for the applicants, but also making sure that all of the board members are able to ask the questions, have their concerns addressed in a sort of structured way. So I just sort of laid out what I hope could be a good structure sort of within each agenda item for moving through the review process. So the first thing is just an introduction from the chair. So this would be basically Maren just saying what the application is, what we have, what's been submitted, what's happened since the last time this applicant was in front of the board, if there was a previous time. Then the second thing would be getting a presentation and any information from the applicant. So again, if it's a new application, they would just go through the whole thing, like here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing it, here's what we've submitted, just running through everything, giving us as much information as they can in a way that's dictated by them as the applicant. And then if it's a returning application, they would hopefully also be presenting new materials that are in response to things that we've requested, and also hopefully addressing any questions or concerns that had been raised by the board in a previous meeting. Then the third thing was just questions from the board. So we hear from the applicant, but then we just go around and every board member gets a chance to say what their thoughts are, also raise any questions or concerns that they have, and have a little bit of a dialogue between board members and the applicant. Then the next thing was if we have, if it's been scheduled, I think that's a good place to put the public comment. And then after that would be board discussion. So the thing is, at this point, one of the challenges that sometimes happens in our meetings is we'll sort of have this free for all that Maren discussed. And I think when it was in person, I mean, it maybe is even a little enjoyable for someone like me who enjoys that kind of thing. But especially on Zoom, it's felt like, oh, that really isn't working so great. And if we sort of separate, you know, the applicant's presentation, then the board's question, then maybe we even go as far as muting the applicant, and the board can discuss based on what's been presented both in the meeting and in their you know, documentary submissions. And then the board can kind of think about, what do we still want to see? Where is this application in the process of moving towards either seeker determinations or a final decision, or public comment, or submitting things to other agencies for their input? Just where are we at? What do we still want to see from the applicant? And what things might we like to, you know, ask them more about? Then the next thing was conclusion and summary. So once we've kind of finished our discussion, hand it back to the chair, say, okay, the board wants to see the following things. And then if there was maybe a question that we wanted to pose again to the applicant, we could do that there at the end before moving on. But I also put in here, one of the things that's been challenging is when the board is asking an applicant for someone, sometimes the specific request can get lost in the confusion of a discussion. So I thought putting that all at the end here would be helpful. And then I, as the vice chair, could keep track of what we're requesting, and then also hand that off then to Brianna. But to just sort of try to formalize when we're asking for things and what we're asking for, whether it's a requirement or a request, that type of stuff. And then the last thing would be, if we are at the end of an application, putting the findings and decision. So that's what I came up with. Maren's the only one who's seen it before now. So I don't know if, Maren, you want to open it up for people to talk?
Yeah, maybe if anybody, I mean, I thought this was great, and I agree with Sam, because we had, it's a lot easier when you are in person to sort of say, well, the board is speaking now, or to have it's more natural to have the applicant speak, but God knows the rest of our lives we could be on Zoom the way it's going. But this also sets up a rigor that, you know, matters less the people. This is the way we go about a application. So it also stops applicants from breaking in when we're having a real board discussion. That's a board discussion period of time. And that stops us from breaking in while they're still presenting, and they lose their train of thought. And then we forgot why we interrupted, and they lose their momentum and making a nice, concise presentation. So I think I think it's great to do it this way. Applicant specific questions if we're having public, and then we have a discussion that's really us going through, do we need to read through specifics of code? Do we, you know, want to do XYZ? Does, you know, and we sort of hash it out, and then the applicant. So I like having it set up like this. It'll probably make it speedier too, because we'll know boom, 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 especially the more we do it. So that was my 2 cents worth. You guys might want to have a bit more time to, you know, look it over, mull it over, but any first thoughts here?
I think the concept is great.
Yeah, I agree. I like the way it flows and there's some order to it. The thing, and I think Sam says this in a different way in what he's written, one of the things that I've noted that we've come up against is either the applicant and the board member gets into a bit of a debate about something, it becomes a debate, and or more likely the applicant's representative chooses to get into a debate as to what is or isn't applicable, yada, yada, yada. So I don't know how to handle that. That's usually what takes up a lot of time. In fact, debating the same thing ad nauseum. So I don't know how you deal with that. I like each going around. I have a habit of jumping in whenever, So I like going around and taking your turn and having the opportunity to hear from the applicant either answers to a question that a board member has as we go around in order, or a board member makes some request and maybe our attorney says that's out of order, you can't do that. Whatever. I think it's perfectly appropriate. It causes us to be a little bit more organized in our thinking. I'm still troubled by how do we cut off some of this constant, I'll call it debating.
I think that by maybe giving not just the bullet point headlines to an applicant, that in and of itself says this is the process that we use. So introduction, presentation, questions, public, blah, blah, blah. And then you have a better ability to say, right now the board is discussing, so you do not have the floor. And they'll be warned ahead of time. They'll see this is the process, and that cuts back. You can't have 100% certainty, obviously, but that helps that everybody knows where we're all coming from, and they know this is now the board discussion time when the applicant and at the end, as he said, at the end of that, we could present something forward or maybe ask more questions, but this gives you an ability to say, we're going to table your application and go forward no further if you keep interrupting, because you know the rules of the game. Before, somebody didn't know the rules of the game, so you can't really say, don't interrupt, don't get into a debate. Here, it's a lot clearer, and you've been pre-warned. Now, it's not 100% guaranteed, but I think in 90% of the cases, it'll probably work quite well.
Yeah, the flip side of what I just said is sometimes the back and forth is good because they have some cogent reason why they're doing something, and the board says, oh, okay, we can live with that. And just one more comment. Brianna mentioned the amount of time before being on the agenda, you have to have your information in. I think you said 3 weeks. It's 2 weeks, but you're really liking 3 weeks. I just want to reiterate, last minute review of information really is not fair to anybody. So I like the 2 weeks. Unless there's an extraordinary situation, and the chair, can certainly accept whatever in whatever time frame. But I like the 2 weeks. It works, and it gives everybody a chance. It gives me a chance to make sure I go through it thoroughly. And otherwise, it's last minute.
I also think that we need, and this has come more from me and Brianna, to see. We have that part where she said after, there's no obligation if we don't think that a application is complete, even if you make 3 weeks into to Jerry and Becky's office and 2 weeks into us, we can still say you are not on the agenda. People think I hit because they tend to hit, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on that last day. And then you start looking, and the amount of work that is going into, you need this, you need that, this isn't right. We could say, no, this is not complete, and you're going to push to the next. And that really takes Brianna and I being more, putting our foot down and saying, you're not complete, you're not ready, and oh well.
And I keep saying one more final item, but there was a list, there was a list that I think, Maren, you and Mike Baden worked on 4 years ago or 3 years ago, that gave a list of the order of stuff and what was required, depending on whether it was a minor, a major, or a special use. I still have the list here somewhere, but maybe that.
I have that actually, like,
It's on the town
very,
website.
very handy.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that list, if we made great use of it, maybe you do, but to allow the applicant to say, hey, look, this is what you need. And if we need to update it, okay.
Rick, that's what Brianna said is the checklist.
Okay.
They get that.
Great.
And I've got, Rick, as I go through, there's 2 other things I prepped, and one of them is directly related.
Okay,
to that.
super. Because that thing is very complete and great. I'm done.
Okay, so Martin, if it's okay, I'll move on to the next thing. So
I have a quick comment.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Because of the Zoom, how do we decide who speaks first on the board?
I'll just call the people out and I'll mix it up. I'll go from Added the alphabet to the front and from the
Okay,
front.
no, I don't mean it's a big deal, but I'm saying it since on the Zoom, maybe establish certain order.
Yeah, we'll have to do it like that, or otherwise it'll be a mess. Yeah, you're totally right.
So I'll make sure that this all gets sent in an email to Brianna so she can circulate it. I don't know if we need to do some sort of formal adoption of this stuff or if it's just internal, but I don't know.
I
guess
mean, I think this is just internal how we manage our meetings. You know, it's not, we're not making a new law or a new rule
Yeah.
or anything.
Okay. So the next thing I worked on was just thinking about some of the frustration that board members voice. Let me see if I can just get this on a new page. About finding things in the Google Drive. And I know that like to what Brianna said, she's doing a ton of work and it's challenging to get everything uploaded and in order and then very easily findable. And then sometimes we can't find something. So I was just thinking about how we could try to improve our back end in that way. And I also don't want to push more work onto Brianna, but I was just thinking about like how we can take new things that are coming in and have it so they show up in the Google Drive in a way that will be easier for all of us to find what we're looking for and know what it is that is going to open when we click on something. So it turns out that that's called having a file naming convention or a FNC. And basically what you're doing is you're saying, we're all using documents together. Let's decide on how we're going to name them so that we can find them easily and then also kind of know what we're going to be opening up. And then the kind of the additional thing is we can share this with our applicants who are submitting things digitally, and we can encourage them strongly to use this file naming system so that Brianna doesn't have to rename every document that comes in. Hopefully we get a little bit of uptake at least, but this is what I came up with. So the general rule, use underscores, not spaces, don't use lots of weird characters, use a consistent format for writing dates. And then if you have multiple files with the same title, number them using a 2-digit numbering system. I don't think we'll ever have more than 99 with the same date. So I think 2 digits is enough, but the inclusion of the 0 is helpful there. And then use the following file naming structure. So it would be application name dot type of document, which could be, maybe it's a map, maybe it's a report from an expert or a letter. I didn't try to make an exhaustive list there, but just like what type of thing it is. Then the document description or title. So it could be a site plan, it could be a SHPO response, it could be a lighting plan, then dot, and then the date submitted. And then I tried to make up some examples that I thought covered the different permutations of this little system. So if the application was for someone named Smith and they would submit, it would be Smith dot, what is it? It's a permit. And then it would be, what kind of permit is it? It's a zoning permit. And then I put the underscore instead of the space. And then I put the imaginary date that it was submitted. So it'd be Smith dot permit dot zoning permit dot January 27th, 2021. Then I just tried to come up with other things like, so then they submit their short form EAF. So it's Smith dot secra dot short form EAF dot the date, and then Smith dot map is what it is. What type of map? It's a site plan and it's the date. And then they submit an updated site plan. So it would be Smith.map.site plan update with the date. And then they submit another update. So it'd be Smith.map.site plan update 01. Then say they submitted a habitat assessment report, or we got environmental and ECC comment letter. It would be Smith.letter.tor ECC comment with the date. So that's that. Does that make sense to everyone? I'm kind of hoping, I know we all sometimes have trouble finding things in the drive, and the hope is that with kind of a uniform file naming system, it'll just be a little easier to find things across different applications.
Yeah, I'm good with it. I think it's gonna lie with Brianna, and it's, so if she can accomplish it over time, great.
Yeah, I think it's like
I
moving
thought,
forward.
I thought maybe to ease for Brianna, don't list name because she creating folder of applicants, so she doesn't have to type Smith.
Sure.
Just type in content.
Right, if it's going in that folder, maybe it's redundant to also have.
My only thing on that is what Sam is using here. If we ever got to a place where we really had a database and really had software, this is the way you want it. You want Smith there. And I realize that that's probably, as Patrick's laughing, a pipe dream, but who knows, it might actually happen going forward. My other thought is this is easier for us, but having it like this, when we're all gone, it's going to be so much easier to find things and after the fact. So there's an initial more work now, but afterward, there'll be so much less work. So you actually probably will save a lot of time on work for our doing this. And the third thing being, as Sam mentioned, I think some of the sort of good prepared civil engineers and surveyors will have no problem using this. It's a pretty standard format. We'll have some that won't do anything. So I think there'll be some, if we submit this also with an applicant saying, here's how we would like your files to, if you are able, this is how we would like your files to be presented. I know, right, I know Nadine could do this in a heartbeat. She's so organized. And I know some, you know, the larger, some people will never get this, and some of the smaller people, you know, they come in with a piece of paper and that's fine. Then Brianna can do that. But having any uptake by any applicants and having it like this, it's pretty standard DBA technique like this. And it will help us find things a lot in the future instead of searching and searching and searching and searching. Brianna and I spent a lot of time searching and searching.
To speak on that, I mean, before Shay got this job, nothing had dates on it. So when people foil for things from like 2006, it takes me a really long time because nothing had dates. They all just were in a folder. So, I mean, it takes some adjustment, but this will make it a lot easier in the long run for sure. So.
Yeah, I guess we should agree, and I'm just suggesting this should be going forward to go back and correct. It
No,
seems to me to be
forget
too
that.
much work. Just
No, Rick, you've got free time. You can go back and do the last 10 years.
I'm such a computer.
Rick, that is always I always say, oh, when I get downtime, this is what I'm going to do. So I do have plans to do it, but when that happens, that will be my.
I think this
on
is
the top of
probably
my
a, a moving forward process, not a going
Yeah, I'd
backward
say it's a
process.
moving forward process at this point. Exactly.
And Brianna, you know, I kind of just made this up based off of what I thought would be useful and, you know, just looking at some other file naming convention systems that I found online. So if there's some obvious way that this basic setup could be made more user-friendly for you, Brianna, I think we should definitely do that. And, you know, I'll, like I said, I'll send all this to you in an email. So if like you think it'd be better to have it just a little different, or there's a different way you like to type dates or something, like great, we can just do that.
I can certainly just take the general rules that you put and put that in a cover letter and do something like an example so people who are looking at it can understand, and then hopefully it will take actually a lot more off of me because they'll just send it that way and I can just upload it. So that's fine.
I hope
There's
so.
certain criteria for metadata, and I'm not sure. It depends on what type of process you're trying to organize. So I guess I'm not sure if there's a template for this style metadata is my point. Coming up with our own may be redundant, but I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I sort of pulled this off of just doing some Google searches, like those general rules and the date format and the like using the 0102.
Yeah.
So if there's something more specific, I agree, but just I didn't totally make it up.
Yeah,
Patrick, that's a really good point. I can ask my Cracker Jack husband, and who supposedly used to program databases, and his guys at his company, if maybe they have, to double check what Sam pulled up, if we're, in the right direction. You
Yeah.
know, this looks like, we don't have to be perfect, obviously, but if this looks like a
Yeah,
pretty good.
I guess my point is you don't want to be a one-off on that, because
Yeah,
I think, I know for a fact that there is templates that are specifically set up for this stuff. And I don't recognize, I'm not enough aware of what the specification for the layout is. I just would prefer that it would be in a more universal mode as opposed to if we're just designing our own.
did you see that when you were working in Rhinebeck on stuff, or do you have an example, or do you know anybody who ever did it? Do you have, like,
Yeah, well, we used to do a lot of that, but that actually wasn't, my purview wasn't really in that part. So
Well, is there-
all I know is that there are standard templates for this, but I'm not sure exactly how that format is.
Is there someone we could ping, Patrick, for
Yeah.
like your system or best practices? Because for me, the most important thing is just that we do a system. And yeah, like I completely agree with what you said, that we don't want to be off by one small thing that we could just solve.
Well, that situation is pretty much dissolved. So the people that I would need to talk to are no longer available.
Maybe we can ping the, like, what is it? The Federation of the
exactly, the Federation of Towns,
yeah.
Association of Towns
Association
or
of Towns.
Planning Federation, two
They
different
probably
things.
have
Yeah.
Someone who would know, or they'll say, no, that you're just thinking about it is the most important.
They might
you
say,
know,
you are
I mean-
so way ahead of the curve on this. After you figured it out, let us know so we can send it to others.
But let's try, that's totally good, Mary Lou. Let's try the Association of Towns and the Planning Federation. Maybe they have something. And then Dutchess County's got a lot of, they do
Yeah.
a lot of stuff. They might be one also to the Dutchess County like as part of the Ulster County Planning Board, the Dutchess County Planning Board. Maybe that's another one to ping and see if they have ever seen or anything.
And Mike, if you're listening, if you have if you know of someone, let us know.
Exactly.
And we'll. Okay, so the last thing I did is the thing that probably still needs more work, though I did do more work since Maren looked at it. So this was just sort of the application tracking. I put a little intro here, but it's basically like, people submit things as part of an initial packet. Then they come in front of us, we ask them for more stuff. And there's also this sort of question of, have you submitted what we asked for in order to get on our next agenda? So like, if we ask someone to submit us 3 additional things and they've submitted none of them, does it make sense to have them on the agenda? Or if the initial pack is totally missing everything and they're trying to get on the agenda, we can be like, hey, look, you actually haven't submitted anything that we've asked for. So I tried to make a little bit of a sheet that would also be helpful for Brianna. So my idea was that we could have a version of this, basically make a copy for every application and put it in the Google Drive folder. And then it would be accessible to all the board members, and edit privileges would be limited to chair, vice chair, and secretary. So the vice chair, like from above, would try to keep track of what we're asking for. The secretary would be adding stuff, and then the chair just in order to be able to edit if they need to. And then it would include these things: application name, date of initial referral, what's required based on the type of application it is, and then dates of when stuff comes in, then what we're asking for, and then putting some links. So I initiated the link thing by putting a link here to demonstrate. And then I basically just made this. It's like a pretty simple looking form where you can type in the application name, the original date it was referred to us, when it first went on the application. And then I put in here, Rick and Patrick were mentioning the official stuff on our website. So I put a link to that, to those packets, which can then open up so that we can all go straight to it if we're looking at this sheet. It's just easy to put that in there. And then I kind of worked off of those initial packets, which I have to admit are they're definitely overwhelming for me. There's like a list of stuff that's definitely required. Then there's the review criteria, which are really helpful in reviewing, but it's not necessarily stuff that's required to be submitted. And then there's stuff that's required sort of for final approval, but not necessarily for an initial review. So that's where I think this needs the most additional work. But so this is the minor subdivision. So you need the zoning permit from the code enforcement office. It's required as part of the initial submittal. And yes, it's required. The application, the fee, short form EAF, authorizing letter, sketch plan. And then the idea here was like, we say, oh yeah, we want, topo with 2-foot contours. I guess that would actually be required. And then we would request it, at this meeting. So it would be 2021, what's today? The 25th -25 -1-25. And then, yes, it would be required. And then here it would be the date submitted. And then here you can put a file link to our Google Drive file. So say I'm just going to use this file as an example. If it's open, Brianna, you can just highlight the link and you can copy it. And then you can just paste that link right there. So when we're looking at this sheet and it's like, oh yeah, what's that thing we asked for? We could just click on that link to bring us right to the specific document that was requested, which I thought might also be helpful. And then Brianna, also these, once they get finished, you can just make a copy of the specific sheet for every application. So like on the minor subdivision down here, you would just click that and go copy to, and make a new spreadsheet. Then it would open up a new sheet that was a copy, and you could just put the name on that new sheet. That's what I was thinking. And then I made different ones for the different types. They're mostly the same, except the list of what needs to go in it is a little bit different. And this actually, Maren, I'd like to go through with you and Brianna, because I'm sure I'm missing stuff.
Yeah, actually, that's really funny because for the planning board, it doesn't happen with the zoning board, and this, Bruce, might be something that we could do for the zoning board. I do have, it's, you can't see it, it's an application history report that has a lot of that stuff on, but I have to handwrite it in. And it has the name of project, property owner, application type, referral by code enforcement officer, application file with planning board date. So it has most of the information on there, but I don't have any, I don't ever upload it. It just is something that I staple to the folder.
Right.
But that would make it a lot easier because, for example, like applications that are very large, like Wayward Ranch, I ran out of room.
Right.
All the times they were on the agenda. I had to keep, this has like referral by agencies, and it only gives you one option. So if I could have that, and that can say on Google Drive or in my computer as well. And Bruce, this is something maybe we should do.
Yeah, so just a couple comments on it. First, Sam, this is wonderful work. It's great.
Yeah.
My background at the airline is in continuous improvement, Six Sigma, black belt, that kind of stuff. So my initial thought is if you ever get tired of working with vegetables in the garden, have some potato heads you could work with at work that could use a little straightening out. So this is magnificent stuff. I'll steal what I can and incorporate it in my Spark notes and things like that. My only caution with software, because I've seen this, is that it's a bright, shiny object when we start working with it. But what happens is Sam moves on to bigger and better things, and the people left behind struggle to keep it up and the care and feeding that go into any system, right? And that's my only fear with it. I think it's wonderful stuff. You did a lot of effort in it, but maintaining it going forward after Sam moves on could be an issue, right? So it's how to make it so it's bulletproof from that perspective.
It could also be,
Sam just can't move on.
no,
Yeah,
well,
there you go.
you know, I
That's
do-
the other alternative, right?
I hate to
Yeah.
be the millennium in the room saying that it's easier than you think, but this
Exactly.
this is easier than you think, and also the benefit of this format is it could just be printed out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Be,
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, we're not like coding or writing new software. We're basically just using Google Docs,
Yeah.
what is available there. And I think another key thing will be, and that'll have to be Sam, you, me, Brianna sitting down, because you're right. Right now we have the checklist, and this is sort of just taking our checklist so it at least is online. Because right now we have this piece of paper we give everybody. It's too unwieldy, and people don't know where to start. So if we can do, at one point, Becky, Brianna, and I tried to start doing this, but this is like, as we said, this is something that gets pushed back because you got more other stuff to do. So the people would know, here's my have to have, here's my we'll have to have afterward, and here's maybe we'll have, but maybe not also. Right now they look at it and think they need everything, and then they panic and do nothing. So we need this, I think, putting it this way, Sam, will make it that they say, okay, these are the things that I really need. And Brianna will be able to keep track of it, not in a piece of paper, but basically in a bunch of spreadsheets. And then we could have some version also of this, Sam, I think, to give to people. So they have a real checklist as opposed to this enormous long piece of paper that everybody panics when they see. They panic when they see it. They and they end up doing nothing.
I did think about if this could actually be like shareable with applicants, but then like kind of to Bruce's point, I panicked.
No, that goes to Bruce's point. We lose control of the machine totally.
Yeah. That self-service option would be wonderful, right?
Yeah, right. Well, that's what we need, the real, if our liaisons are listening, that's like, I think if the town board really made that a priority, it would really help.
Yeah,
So
you need
push,
a
not a
real,
pull, right?
right, yeah, you need a real system then. You need, like, you're logging on to your Charles Schwab account and they force you to fill out the form online.
Right.
But that's a very big IT department behind you for that.
Right, sure. Well, anyway, so that's what I worked on. And, you know, I think these checklists by the different types, I don't think that they're complete and necessarily usable quite yet, but I think this format, again, I'll share this with Brianna, but I'm hoping that these three pieces together might help us streamline some of the, you know, the wrangling of applicants. We love our applicants. I don't want to say wrangling. Just making sure it moves fast for them also. Like it's helpful to the applicants if things move forward quickly.
So then my
Herding cats.
yeah, herding cats is right. My only other additions beyond this, and Rick and I have talked about it, is finding a way, and this could be a way we get to it by having these forms, is using as ZBA is, everything is a pre-app. And we established that. And then the second, but then beyond that, so that gives people sort of a quote unquote free look, because they're going to come with the pre-app, they're not charged anything. But based on this checklist that we have here, if you meet a bunch of hurdles, then we bring the consultant in for a fee, no negotiation, not setting escrow. That's a bigger, if we really need a big project, and now because we have this, and this, we bring in for an initial review of $500 or something. We just make it our policy that now we contact CPL and they do an initial review because we have a certain number of criteria. I don't know what the rest of the board thinks of that, but we have some complex things coming in and we need to sort of codify 2 levels of when we get them in, instead of wrangling over escrow late in the process. We need maybe, you know, one thing that Rick and I had talked about was if, okay, you have a lot line, we don't need CPL ever. You have a natural subdivision, we don't need them ever. if you have a major subdivision, they get involved, $500 fee for an initial review at the onset. If you have a minor subdivision over a certain number of lots or with various characteristics, like there's wetlands, you're in the flood zone, there's prime farmland. I want everybody to sort of think of like what would be, you know, the criteria. Then we say, nope, we need them to get involved to make sure that that we're asking on our checklist for all the right things. Because what's happening is you get some of these with a lot of contravening things in it, and then we don't ask, and then we ask again, and then we ask again, and then we ask again, and then you end up saying, okay, now we need escrow because we found all these things along the way. I'm thinking it could make it cleaner and expedite it. I don't know what everybody else thinks.
One of the thoughts that I had, and I think we kicked this around, Lauren, is my experience with CPL was wonderful when we did Wayward Ranch because, and that was a special use permit if everybody remembers, because so much of it involved wetlands, a SWIP, making sure that the water runoff was treated properly, a whole host of things that CPL, engineering type things is the word I'm looking for, that CPL is excellent at. We've also used them, for example, on noise related issues, or at least beginning to look at it. They have some noise people there that are experts on decibel levels and all that. Where I find we need some additional help, and CPL doesn't provide that, as I see it, is what's the latest and greatest in terms of planning. So for example, when if we're dealing with solar, we're dealing with, well, solar is a good example. So what's the latest and greatest going on in the world of solar that we should be asking for? I'm just throwing stuff out. So, giving us advice, here's what other towns are doing. They're allowing solar with his farming taking place as a way for the farmer to capitalize on his or her land, take a certain portion of it, give it over to solar, and preserve the farm for future generations, the rest of the farm. This allows them to stay in business. Well, CPL is not going to come up with that. If we were ever to get I'll call it a major subdivision we haven't gotten anything much bigger than 7 or 8 houses. But if we were to get something with 25, 30 houses that needed sub roads, a sewer system, a water system, well, what's the best way to handle those things? We've never used the conservation. I think it's in our code, it's called conservation subdivision.
Yep.
CPL is not going to be able to advise us with that because they've never dealt with, well, let's put the project over here and the other 100 acres preserved as forever green. There are firms that do planning, not engineering. And so my preference, what I think we should start looking at is a firm that can do that and help us with that. And if an engineering question comes up, they interface with CPL. We're not going to get some of the things I mentioned from CPL. It's not their shtick. It's not what they advertise to be. That would require the town board to approve a firm. We would interview them, but to approve the firm and to approve the fees involved with that. Every project that comes in, we're talking about $500 or $1,000 for certain kinds of projects, minor subdivision, special use, major subdivision, to allow the planner to look over it. And if all it is, it's 10 minutes worth of work, well, then the applicant gets everything back. But as you said, we get a couple of meetings into it, and all of a sudden we start telling the applicant, oh, by the way, you have to give us $6,000 so we can have CPL look at this thing, as opposed to, so I think we need something beyond, at this stage, CPL as our consultant.
Well, let Mary Lou pipe in there at some point, but there's two things. One, Rick, we can codify what we're doing right now better, but we could write a letter, correct, Mary Lou, saying we want a new consultant for XYZ, but if you have a planning consultant, I don't think the town board is going to say, yes, you have a planner for your high level planning as a consultant, and you also have an engineering firm, because most planning firms are also engineering firms. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mary Lou.
And not all, but many have both planning and engineering. And I've worked with some in other towns where, the planner sometimes comes to every meeting, often comes to every meeting, or at least reviews all the applications. And sometimes they're like, wait, this needs an engineer, so they'll throw it out to an engineer in their firm. So everybody's all in one spot. I'll be honest, CPL may be that way as well. I'm pulling up their site, our services. Let's see what it says.
I mean,
But I've worked with others that are very good at this sort of thing. Now, it would have to be, right now, in our code, it does say that the applicants would pay for professional review. However, the town board really has to be the one who says, yeah, now we're going to actually start doing that, because they're always in charge of the money part.
right.
So you may want to, if you want to go this route, write a suggestion saying we'd like to have kind of a planner ready to go at all times, and here's when we'd use him or her, and we'd like them to be attached to an engineering firm.
Because CPL is technically both. I mean,
I think they are.
I mean, the planner is that we
Oh,
now
yeah.
have is Liz, and then she refers things to engineers. That they seem, everybody could say they're both, but they lean stronger on the engineering side.
Yeah, I think they do. That,
Their website, or what they profess to be, is they do both, Rick, but they clearly lean much better on the engineering side. And some of them might be somewhat more balanced, could be. So I can draft up a letter saying that we would like to use, because as Rick, right now we have to use exactly as Mary Lou said, what our planning is, and our planning, what our zoning code is, and we are using that. And that means you ask for escrow at a certain point when we determine we need our consultant, which is CPL. We could say we would like to use the process earlier because we have the ability to do that in the code, and say, and I can write something out and have everybody look at it, not applicable for lot lines, natural subdivisions. Here's the hurdles where we would like someone in the process earlier, and mention perhaps the town board should consider a firm with more balanced talents, for lack of a better word. And then we just see what they come up with. And that's all we can do, really, on that front. We can organize ourselves better, but on that front, we can just throw this out as a suggestion. So everybody in agreement, maybe I draft something up and you guys have a look at it and see if it captures sort of the spirit of what we're talking
Sounds
about.
fine to me. Sure.
I guess I should have started off, Maren, by saying, a lot of what we've been able to accomplish is because of particular people that have been on the board. So Mike loved to do findings and conditions. You do a magnificent job at findings and conditions. If you're not there, it's going to fall to Sam. It fell to me for Waywood Ranch. I just don't think that it should be the wonderful job we do because there's one or two people on the board that love doing this stuff, as opposed to a professional who can say, wait a minute, you guys got to take a look at your overlay zones. You got to make sure that they have natural heritage areas marked. Somebody who's thinking all that stuff. You do it, Maren, but if you weren't there, who's it going to fall to?
I totally agree. This is not scalable or sustainable. You need a sustainable, scalable approach to this. So whoever comes in has the resources and the process, because yes, for the next 100 years, I'm not going to be doing this either. And right now it can fall apart too easily. I agree, Rick. So I think.
And another point is that, a lot were lot line adjustments, but you had 45 applications in the past year during a pandemic. That's kind of amazing that that there's that many people who want to be doing things in the town of Rochester. And that's fantastic. But I have a feeling you're going to get more once this pandemic ends. And I know you get your stipend, but face it, you're basically volunteers.
We're being paid.
Oh,
to-
that's right, that stipend, gosh.
Right, yeah.
I try not to spend it all in one place.
That's
You
a
know, I
really
could
good
give you-
point. I'm gonna add that in our letter, saying that we, under a pandemic, we did 45 applications, and this
Yeah,
isn't really
I think the
sustainable.
notion of it, it's not sustainable. It is if certain people stay. But if for whatever reason they can't do it, they move out of the area, what are you gonna do then? Ask Mike to be town supervisor and planning board chair?
Yeah, it just, no
Not
matter what.
allowed.
Not allowed, exactly, it doesn't work.
And this really is the standard of the other boards that I work with, that
Exactly,
they have a planner.
exactly.
And I don't want it to wind up being more expensive for somebody who wants to do a simple, one lot subdivision or a lot line change. I mean, we need to keep it reasonable. This isn't Westchester, for goodness sake. But there were some projects and are some coming down the road, the motel or the hotel across from
Yep,
on 209 on the left-hand side going north. Oh my God, that thing is,
you've got
wonderful
layers,
idea, but
layers
there's
and
so
layers and
many-
layers of work, and you need somebody who does planning
Yeah.
as a profession to be in charge of managing that through, yes.
Yeah.
All right, so I will draft something up and we can send that on to the town board and keep our fingers crossed. And that is pretty much what I had. That's a pretty good organizational direction for us. So I guess we have outstanding that I need to draft something up there. Sam, Brianna, and I need to work on getting the checklist stuff together.
Adding some stuff for cover sheets for what we give to applicants, yeah.
Exactly.
the stuff you did was phenomenal. Thank you.
Amazing, amazing work you guys did. Thank you.
And if anybody else doesn't have more comments, we can all go have a snack.
Well,
Great
I
job
guess,
hosting.
is everybody who's on the zoning board glad that you're on the zoning board after seeing all this? Are you like, whew?
Oh, yeah.
Although
I'm
they
like-
did have Catalpa Lane this year, and
Exactly.
that kind of trumped a lot. That was a lot of work.
Theirs is a little bit more, flying into a bad airport. It's all really calm, and then you get a really bad turn, and it's really terrifying. Ours is just like bumpy air all the time. We're in permanent turbulence.
I've gone into some of those airports over my life. Oh my God.
Exactly. You're like, I will die before we hit the ground. All right, guys, have a great evening. Thank you very much
Thank you.
for all this.
Anybody
you.
want to
Both.
make a motion to
Nice,
adjourn? or-
nice seeing everybody from the zoning board.
Adjourn.
Good night.
A
I'll
motion to
make a
adjourn,
motion.
a
Motion
second,
to
Seconded.
adjourn.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All
Aye.
right, again,
Good night, everyone.
and good night, everybody.
Aye.